All right, welcome to Chuk Woo's channel. I am Woo. Thanks for tuning in. On this channel, I'll be discussing current events, giving you for and against, pros and cons versus the same topic. I'll give you my opinion and allow you to make your own opinion. Let me know in the comments. As I've said in a few of my other videos, the purpose of this channel, this Woo on the News series, is given the current state of events. The world is very polarized. Let's try to look at both perspectives on a particular topic, use our intelligence, use our knowledge, use our wisdom, and then try to meet somewhere in the middle. All right, so thanks for tuning in again. Today's topic is tariffs. Tariffs have been in the news for a number of weeks. The current administration here in the US is using them for a variety of different purposes. So what is a tariff? A tariff is essentially a tax on a good that is produced, that is made in another country. Essentially, a tax is placed on that good when it is imported to another country where the manufacturer is looking to sell that good in. Okay, so for example, you make tin cans in Greece, you want to sell those tin cans in the US may impose a tariff, a tax to increase the price of that good before it is actually sold to United States consumers. Okay, so what are some pros of tariffs? Right, I'll give you three. Number one, it protects domestic industries, right? Let's say you are a US-based manufacturer of cans in the example I just gave. If a tariff is placed on those cans coming in from Greece to the US, that gives you a competitive advantage because theoretically your goods are going to be cheaper now. So it increases the bar of competition for international consumers, allowing those domestic producers to flourish, to thrive, to have an advantage, right? It protects industries. Also, it could obviously generate revenue for the government that is imposing the tax. Remember, in this example, the can manufacturer from Greece is importing their goods to the US. There's a tariff on it. The actual producer of the actual buyer of the good is paying the tariff. That means at the port, there's a company in America that has requested this import from the Greek can manufacturer. That US company is now paying the tariff, right? So that tariff, that duty is now delivered to the US government, so that could increase government revenues. And obviously the third reason why this might be a pro is that it could correct unfair trade practices, right? Other countries use a variety of techniques to make their goods more competitive, right? They have cheaper labor, they can use subsidies, they can use a practice called dumping, which is essentially where they dump a bunch of cheaper goods on the domestic market, flooding that market with their goods. Obviously, that's a negative for the US producer. So those are three pros for those who are, for the imposition of tariffs. It protects domestic industries, it can generate revenue for the government, it can correct unfair trade practices, right? So let's get into the cons. Let's get into the against. Obviously, if you're imposing a tax on goods, that's going to increase the price of that good. So again, in this can example, that means anyone looking to buy that can or the product that was put in that can in America, for American consumers, the price of that item has gone up. Why? Because there was a duty imposed on it at the port. That means if the company were planning to sell that to you for $1, there's a 25% tariff on it, making their costs go up by 25%. They're going to pass that 25% cost increase on to you. Now you're paying $1.25. So that decreases your purchasing power. So that's the first con. It makes things more expensive for the consumer, for us. Obviously, another con is that it could lead to trade wars. If a country is using tariffs to make the goods that are produced in another country more expensive in the domestic market, that could lead to retaliation. In this example, the Greek government may say, okay, you're imposing 25% duty on some of our products. We're going to turn around and impose a 25% duty on your products from the US coming into Greece. So all this back and forth, it increases prices across the board. It leads to disruption in supply chains. And obviously, if you're a company, if you're that manufacturer and there's this tit for tat going back between the governments, it's hard for you to plan. You don't know what your costs are going to be. You don't know how to forecast for the next year. So it basically slows things down to a crawl. It creates a lot of uncertainty. And then the final con is it could encourage corruption, quite frankly, right? Let's say you're a company or a country, you want your goods sold in the US. There are ways to get around those tariffs, right? Lobbying, looking for sort of incentives from the government, looking for exclusions from that government. So it could potentially lead to backdoor deals that aren't necessarily in the interest of the general public with these tariffs, but more so in the interest of the company that is importing them. So it can lead to a lot of shady things. I'm not saying that's always the case, but it could, and you can see how it could lead to that. All right, so I've given you 3 reasons why someone might be against. It increases consumer prices, it can lead to corruption, it can lead to trade wars and tit for tat back and forth. Now, what is my opinion on this? Again, trying to be in the middle. Tariffs may serve some good, right? Protects vital industries, pharmaceuticals and medical. You want that to stay domestic. You don't want to be beholden. You don't want to rely on another country for those. Energy, agriculture. So in some ways, tariffs can help protect vital industries in the country, all right? Second thing is, you have to make sure that you understand the actual impacts of the tariff that you're looking to impose. The world is global. There are supply chain considerations, there are geopolitical considerations, there are end consumer considerations. Before you go about throwing tariffs around, implementing them, you have to make sure you have educated economists, people who are very familiar with the potential impact of those tariffs are, right? That's critically important. You have to understand the whole thing soup to nuts, quite frankly. It takes a very well-informed individual to know how to implement these with care. And then my final opinion is, at the end of the day, we live in, generally speaking, not always the case, a capitalist world. Business is always going to do what they need to do in order to maximize profits. You'll never get away from that. Sometimes that means manufacturing a good in a country where the labor, the input costs are cheaper, right? That's how things got offshored in the first place. So at the end of the day, you're essentially fighting capitalism, which I'm not sure is a winning battle, okay? So in today's video, we talked about tariffs. We discussed what they are, gave you 3 pros, 3 cons, gave you my opinion. What is your opinion? What are your thoughts on this? Let me know in the comments. I'm very interested to hear. Again, thanks for tuning in. Like, share, subscribe this video if you found anything valuable from it. Take care.